We are so fortunate to have the very busy 2 tours, 2 albums, a symphony, art projects, and all of these different things going on at the same time. Serj Tankian, who, however, with all of this, is taking time out to speak to us. So thanks a lot for being here, dude.
Thank you, Steve. Thanks for having me.
Oh, dude, it's my pleasure. I mean, as you say, we've done this so many times, and every time there's something different going on. So you have the symphony, the jazz album.
Yep.
You are doing, now you're only doing in the U.S., there's only like 1 or 2 system dates, correct?
There's only 1 system date in LA. We actually didn't have any US dates. We had set up 3 weeks of touring in Europe with System for the summer festivals, and so they wanted to, the guys wanted to add an LA date since we're starting from here, and it's been a few years since we've played here, so we're like, okay, well, let the takeoff point be home. So, yeah.
Now, when was the last time you guys actually played here?
It would have to be 2011 or 2010? 2011. Yeah.
Okay, that's right, Forum shows.
That's right.
I remember that. That was the same night that they announced the Rock the Bells press conference.
Okay.
I remember that
Good
only
memory.
because, well, because I work with Rock the Bells a lot, the hip hop
yeah.
festival.
Oh, that's right, that's right.
And so I'm friends with them, as George is sitting here with an NWA shirt.
Yes, he is.
Representing hip hop.
That's right.
And so I remember I squeezed all my interviews in early to come and see the show at the Forum.
Oh, cool, man.
Yeah. So you guys bowl. You've done the bowl before, though, right?
No, we've never done the bowl, and that was kind of the, fun part of it, that we've never played there before. I've always wondered how it would be to perform at the Hollywood Bowl. So, and it's not the typical Hollywood Bowl kind of band. You want a jazz band or the LA Phil, fronted by another artist, but it should be fun.
Well, it's interesting because it fits in, so it's funny because, I mean, obviously there's not necessarily a direct music correlation, but it fits in so well with everything that you're doing at this moment with the symphony, and that's one of the things we've talked about is the fact that, that's something that you've really started to explore a lot more the last few years, and obviously starting with your solo work, and you started to take that out with symphonies.
Yeah, definitely. We did a number of shows, mostly in Europe, but we did one in the U.S. in Atlanta with the Atlanta Symphony Orchestra in 2010 for the Elect the Dead Symphony. And now with Orca, a real symphony without vocals, obviously, we're going to be doing a bunch more shows in Europe. We've got about 14 or 15 shows booked through Europe.
Sorry about that.
Oh,
anyway,
fine.
as I was saying, it's always interesting to see how all of this stuff ties together and everything. And I mean, the symphony is something that started out for you. You kind of wanted the challenge.
I happened upon it by accident, like I do with all my, creative projects. I was writing imperfect harmonies, and I came up with 1 or 2 tracks that were 9-10 minutes long, and so melodic that I could not place vocals on them for the life of me. And a friend of mine actually listened to them, and I was in New Zealand at the time, and he said, "You know what? You've got your first 2 acts of your symphony," and I'm like, "Oh wow, okay." So I kind of explored that mind frame of finishing a symphony and going at it in that way, and of course done a lot of work since on all 4 acts of Orca, and it's quite interesting. And we recorded Orca live last year with the Das Karussell Orchestra in Linz, Austria, an amazing orchestra at the Bruckner House, where we had played before, and conducted by Werner Steinmetz, the conductor that I've worked with, and so it was a great experience doing. And then we did a live show, so we had 2 days of rehearsal, a live recording day, and a live show day, and it came out great. And so we're putting it out now.
Nice. And now, will you be doing more symphony stuff after this? Are you just gonna are you gonna be concentrating on other stuff? And we'll talk for a second too. I mean, we'll figure out how that ties into the Jazz Is record in a second.
Yeah.
But let's talk first about your future symphony plans. I mean, do you want to keep progressing with it and do I mean, would you want to do for example, full? Would you want to conduct?
That I thought of that, and one day I would want to conduct, but it wouldn't be just an orchestra. It would be a live band, like a big band orchestra. So I'd more of a Zappa thing, so it'll be, and not necessarily all scripted and all written, so a lot of improvisational capability, so mix the jazz world, the big band world, and the orchestral world. That I would conduct, because I would want to kind of manipulate momentary, improvisational techniques with some type of pre-scripted score, maybe on the orchestral side, and make the band stuff go crazy around it, or, that I would love to score and put together one day. But, I do want to do other forms. I've written some chamber pieces and a few choral pieces, and, because to me it's like trying everything, in terms of being an artist. Same thing with the paintings, and so I think an artist can do different forms, and you may like one, you may not like one as a as a consumer or as a fan or whatever. That's fine. That's totally cool. But an artist has got to do whatever comes to him, and I am doing that. Whether I put out the rest of the classical forms as music or not, that's I don't know. I'm doing a lot more scoring as well, so I probably will end up using some of what I do for scoring.
Interesting. Now, when you say a lot more scoring, I mean like for specific film projects, or more just on your own for the experimental process?
No, I'm actually working on a video game that we're almost done with. We've been working on it for about a year. It's called Morning Star, and it'll be released for the iPad. It's a sci-fi shoot-'em-up game with really interesting graphics and amazing artists that are kind of the driving force behind this game. And it'll be a really, really high-tech game for the iPad coming out this year.
Wow.
And I'm attached to a number of film projects as well that are going through funding or going through production. They're not shot yet, etc. So hoping to do more of that in the future.
Now, for Morning Star, how'd you get involved in it?
A friend of mine that we're both on the board of a nonprofit in Armenia. He started the video game company in the U.S. and he comes from the Disney world of video games, and so we kind of set up a strategic partnership, and we were both interested in what the other guy was doing, so it kind of just worked out perfectly.
Interesting. Will you be taking those further? Will you be doing, I mean, after this one comes out, do you want to do more games together?
I do, yeah. I want to do more games, I want to do more films, TV, and because, I have a lot of musical output, and that's kind of, I'm switching more to being a composer than just a songwriter or a lyricist or singer or whatever you want to throw the moniker at. So that's really enjoyable, and the classical styles and lend themselves really well to that field.
Well, it's such an interesting thing because we've had this conversation many times over the last few years, and it's one of those things. System is doing the dates as you talk about. People want new System music, but at the same time, you're in this position where you want to experiment and move forward. Do you see an opportunity where you'd be able to take all of these new ventures and all these different things you're doing and put it towards new System music, or at this point, are you just content doing so many different things? Again, I mean, especially as you start breaking into film and video games and symphonies, it's something that you can just continue to go forward with, and you'll never really run out of options.
Yeah, right. I like doing it all. I like doing the System stuff as well. That's why we're still touring as a band, and I like doing. But I don't think I should be limited to doing any form with System or anything else. And as far as things taking time, I mean, truth of the matter is I've been working straight and going really fast and hard since our hiatus. And so this will be my, with Jesus Christ and Orca, it'll be 6th record, so it's almost like a record a year. I've been touring with the FCC, I've been touring with orchestras, I've been touring with System for 3 years. So I've been going pretty hard, and I'm booked till the end of this year. So I decided that I'm going to take a few years off in terms of putting out records and touring, and focus, spend some more time in New Zealand, spend some more personal time, family, etc. And start doing some scoring and stuff, but nothing major, and and then come back and go, okay, what are we doing? What's going on with System? What are we doing? And pay the So that's where I'm at personally. But everyone's at a different place in their life. Everyone rate of production in terms of music is different, and so we're trying to figure out, as far as System as a band, what that commonality is. When would be the best time to do it? Irrespective of the drama and everything that has occurred recently.
Well, but the thing is too, for you have so many divergent interests. And it's like, for example, we were talking about the fact, George and I were talking before you came in, you guys, you and Tom, who I've been friends with for a long time, Tom Morello, you guys we're doing the Access to Justice radio show here at Sirius and everything. I mean, so, for you, it's been this opportunity to just collaborate and work with so many different people.
Yeah.
And again, for someone who's really interested, it's funny, I had Wayne Coyne on the show recently, and we were talking about that artistic thing of when something calls to you, you just have to follow it. And again, there's going to be sometimes it freaking pisses people off and say, oh, why are you doing this? And some people are going to dig it, and other people are going to be like, dude, this fucking sucks. By the way, it's internet radio, so you can swear if you want. But
fuck yeah. Well, one thing I don't understand is the entitlement issue with music fans, and I appreciate people wanting System because I'm a quarter of that band, and it's my birthplace, and I'm very proud of everything we've done and still do it. But to kind of go to an artist and say, I want you to do this year and in this way, it's like that's not what an artist does. An artist creates. Whatever that muse is, wherever that takes you, and if you like it, get it. If you don't like it, don't. Vote with your dollars, but you can't vote that way.
Yeah, I'm trying to picture, like, for example, during the time that John Lennon took the hiatus when he wanted to raise his kid and everything,
Yeah.
people going up to John Lennon and being like, dude, you need to make a new album.
Yeah.
And you kind of think
Remember
like
he
John...
wrote that song, I'm just sitting here
Watching the wheels, yeah.
That song is the perfect response to all of that. Yeah.
Yeah, it really is, actually. It's like people say, aren't you happy not being in the game anymore? It's a great song.
It's an amazing song.
It's like, it's one of those perfect songs. And I hadn't thought of it in years, but he's like, aren't you happy being in the game anymore? He's like, no, I'm just sitting,
I'm just sitting there, well, yeah.
And it's funny, it'll be interesting to see then what the response is when you take that time off. But the thing is, again, dude, like you say, you've been so busy nonstop. I mean, and I'm sure, I've had this conversation with so many musicians, I'm sure that actually after you take the break, it will reinvigorate you quite a bit.
Absolutely, absolutely. I'm hoping it would. And, it's like I love doing music. It's what I would do whether I get paid for it or not, So, and I like doing it in all forms. I like collaborating. I like doing it on my own. I don't like limiting myself to anything. And I'm going to keep on doing all that.
I think now that the song is stuck in my head, we absolutely have to hear John Lennon watching the
we
wheels.
have to, yes, of course.
So we're going to play some John Lennon watching the wheels, and then we will come back and talk more about fans' entitlement and figuring out how to balance all of these creative outputs and all of this different stuff. But again, this is Steve Baltin, Speakeasy, Mohique Radio, and in honor of Serj's hiatus, let's hear John Lennon watching the wheels. Hey! This is Steve Baltin. You are listening to Speakeasy on Mohique. We are here again with Serj Tankian, and we were just talking about his upcoming hiatus. And
I wouldn't call it a hiatus, but kind of, slow down and not... I've been touring for since 1998, almost every year. I think maybe there's only 1 year or 2 years that we haven't actually hit the road. So, it's kind of... And putting out a lot of records. We've put out 5 system records. This will be my 6 solo records. And I'm liking doing other stuff, slowing it down a bit, and taking a little time off, gaining perspective, coming back, and doing other stuff.
So where do you hang in New Zealand when you're there?
Where? We've actually got a farm there, and I've got residency that I've had, and I've been going back and forth to New Zealand for 10 years. It's primarily my second home, some cases my first home, depending on how much time I spend there. And it's a beautiful place. It's an amazing place to write music because it's not the hustle bustle of this city, and very healthy in every way. If you haven't been, you have to come visit. It's actually incredible.
It's supposed to be. It's fun. I always think of there's this comedian Lewis Black, though. I don't know if you know him. He does the Daily Show.
Yeah.
There was one point where he was doing the stand-up special and he was talking about the 14-hour plane flight.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna fuck the quote up, so I'm not gonna get it. But basically, the gist of it was that if New Zealand really wants to be part of the world, they should be moved closer to the rest of the world.
Right. Well, that's why New Zealand doesn't want to be a part of the world. There's good reason for that.
So for you though, now I'm just really curious because you do that flight back and forth often.
I don't. I've been doing it once a year, but just spending a chunk of time there instead of going for a week. You can't fly 13 hours and spend a week. So I'll go and spend 2-3 months there, come back. And I'm going to start doing 6 months there, 6 months here. And it's good. And the art thing that I've been doing, not to mess up your schedule, but works pretty well with that vibe as well. There's a lot of artists in the community that I'm at there, a lot of painters and sculptors and stuff. And so I've been getting into the art thing heavily. I've done about 19 pieces so far.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and the whole, it stemmed from the, basically wanting music to have the same value as an original art piece, because it's been so devalued with piracy. It's so temporal, intangible, and but then there's these amazing paintings that are physical and there's only one of them, and so I decided, and I had this idea way before, that I wanted a painting with music in it. So I've been embedding speakers and MP3 player within the actual frame of the painting, and writing a piece of music first, and then kind of designing a painting based on that music, basically scoring my own paintings in reverse, and then putting the speakers in, and people really, friends that I've invited over really seem to enjoy that exclusive experience.
Well, you and I spoke, it was a couple of years ago, with the Grammy Camp program I do.
That's right.
For people who don't know, I teach a Grammy Camp program for high school students, music journalism, and Serj was awesome enough to speak with the students when you did an art show at, I believe it was Mocha.
It was, yeah.
So will you be doing exhibitions with this work?
Yeah, I will be. We're looking at setting some up right now, possibly one this year or more, and probably more next year, and start doing exhibitions. We're printing some lithos and a couple of reproductions with speakers and the whole thing, and just kind of get off the ground and get people, get people's minds around what we're doing. And Steve, it's like the first time I've ever painted, and it's like, my two of my neighbors are painters, and they come to me and they're like, oh, obviously they give me advice and whatnot, but they're like, wow, like you're just going for it, like it's just, to me it's an expression. Like, as an artist, I don't think that's what I'm coming to realize, that you don't, as an artist, you don't just see music, you see everything. You see the world through that lens of your artistic muse and influence, and you're able to present something fresh no matter what medium that is, obviously, so it's cool. And I like the idea, like, of putting up a painting that actually is music.
Yeah.
It's playing the music, and in some cases the score is actually there with clocks. I've been using a lot of clock faces to denote timelessness, because they don't have the arms. So when you look at a clock without arms, it kind of freezes your mind in some ways. And
are there painters that have been big inspirations to you? I mean, because obviously as soon as you say the clock faces, I think, for example, Dali. Yeah.
Dali's a huge inspiration. I mean, there's a lot of great painters, some modern, some classic. And one of my favorite tour time activities is to go to museums and galleries and just be inspired anywhere in the world, instead of laying down in the hotel, that kind of a thing. So it's cool, man. It's
where are the favorite museums? Where are the places that, it's funny, I know there are places that for me, like, I'll try and hit every time I go someplace.
Pompidou in Paris, Tate Modern in London. I haven't been to the Guggenheim in New York, or the Met, or so many different museums on Museum Row, there in New York, and over here the MoCA, LACMA, obviously, a bunch of galleries on La Brea. There's so much out there. Europe, a lot of different places. I mean, just go and check it out. And sometimes it's an installation in a park, with sculptures. There's this amazing property in New Zealand that this mega rich dude owns, that has, like, he's brought over sculptors from all over the world and done these huge mega sculptures on a 100-acre property. So I was lucky enough to see that with a friend of mine a few years ago. Really inspiring, really cool stuff.
So talk for a second about how the music you're creating for the art, I mean, that's such an interesting concept, because basically, so you create the music first, then the art reflects that. But what I would imagine, though, as well, because it's funny, I have this conversation with so many artists in regards to covers and things of that nature.
Yeah.
So when you hear someone else interpret your work, as a musician, what happens is generally you hear it in a new way. You see different things in it.
Yeah.
So you may write a piece of music, and you may hear it in a certain way, and then as the painting dictates what the music is becoming, I'm going to guess that the music can often change quite a bit, because what's happening is now you're seeing it with eyes versus hearing it.
Right.
So talk for a second about how maybe some of these works are changing for you as you're doing this, because it's such an interesting, I mean, it's like musicians, basically, it's not like a music video, it's more like creating short films.
Right.
Creating a narrative concept that goes through it, but with art, it's more abstract, so there's no through line through it, so there's nothing that says, okay, well, I met this chick, we went here, we did this, and then we made it rain in the freaking hip-hop club, or whatever the fuck the video you're talking about is. It doesn't really matter,
Yeah.
Or we raced a bunch of cars, or it doesn't matter, whatever. But the point is that, you could paint that if you want.
Yeah.
But at the same time, without that narrative through line, you have the opportunity to be able to mix it up so much and say, okay, dude, I wasn't thinking this, and now all of a sudden it's like, all right.
Yeah, you're right. It's even more, people can take whatever they want out of it, and more so than just a song, per se, with music that's structured in a certain way. And the music that I'm doing to it is very kind of, all different forms of genre depending on the piece. If it looks like my large pieces are just piano, very classic, then there's a small piece that is called A Car Ran Over Me, and I ran over it 7 times with my car to mix the paint. That was my technique. I wanted to use my tires as my brush, and so the music is like boom boom, car revving, and then starting with like these deep electro beats and crazy synths and stuff. So each piece has a very, very unique musical landscape, and they're not very complicated, and they loop so that you can. The idea is to use the music as a gateway into the painting, so that you kind of go in. And at the exhibitions, besides having some of the music on the main system, we'd like to also have headphones accompanying each of the paintings, so people can have a personal experience musically with the paintings.
Wow, so it's something also, though, too, I mean, what's exciting about it as well is you can bring it into the live shows, into the live formats, and I mean, It's funny. I was talking
You
to
could.
this.
I didn't think of that actually.
Yeah, I was talking to this dude today. I don't know if you're familiar with the social app Feed, Pheed, but I was talking with the CEO today, and we're talking. I mean, the opportunities for what people can do with music now are so endless because there's so many more opportunities for multimedia installations and everything. But I mean, how freaking awesome would it be to create an exhibition in the lobby of the venue that you're playing,
Right.
and then turn around and have you play. Even play some of that stuff live or play some different stuff. I see you nodding your head. You're like, yeah.
That's a great idea. It's a grand idea. Yeah. Especially lobbies of like these amazing theaters that we're going to play with Orca this summer in Europe and stuff. That would be awesome to just even having 3-4 pieces with some headphones and stuff. Like, it could be cool.
You give me more work to do, Steve.
Yeah.
Sorry about that,
George deeply thanks you.
Well, it's giving him more work too now because I don't know how many
I know.
paintings are ready, but now you've got to have some that are ready
No,
for
I
him.
have plenty. I'm not worried about that. Yeah, but it's a very good concept actually. We gotta think about that.
George is like, fuck you. Sorry, dude, but I mean, as a fan, I think about like what I would want to see.
Yeah.
And it's like if I know that I'm going, it's going back to. I mean, I have in my office at home, I have this like signed Joni Mitchell print.
Wow.
Huge Joni Mitchell fan. But
Yeah.
I mean, Dylan was a painter. John Lennon.
Yeah,
Ron Wood. I mean, all of
That's
these
right.
people. So it's like if you could combine those elements together,
Right.
why wouldn't you want to see it as a fan? Because as a fan, what it's doing is it's giving you multiple inroads into what the artist that you admire is doing.
Yeah.
And also, at the same time, when you look at all these festivals that have the art installations and everything, people are trying to create their own multimedia exhibitions. They're trying to create their own art installations. If you have the capability as an artist to paint and record and perform live and do all of it in one thing,
Yeah, that would be
why-
awesome.
yeah, why not? Because
Yeah.
again, you're giving fans so much more for their money, but you're also turning them on to other things. And especially as you and I have talked about it with the art installations before, maybe a lot of the people who are into system, they don't spend a lot of time in museums.
Right.
Not to generalize, but maybe some of them who are younger just haven't spent a lot of time there.
Right.
So to come into this place where they can see these art installations, and especially see art installations that have music,
Yeah.
you could be turning on like a whole new generation of fans.
Absolutely. Yeah. But for me, it's just like I'm excited about it. I wake up and I go, oh, I want to do another piece, and so I got to run to the studio first and make music first, so that I can go paint. It's like such a weird, wild, new world for me, and it's awesome. It's taking me to new levels of creativity.
Now, have you reversed it at any point and done a painting first and then the music, or no? You have a
I did because I have a series called Space Clocks, and and I created it by accident because I was trying to do another piece, and it came out like almost like a planet. So it's this large clock without arms, and there's all this like almost space around it, asteroids or all kind of paint and splatters, and it came out really cool. And I'm like, so in that case the work came first, the piece came first. So then I went and basically wrote music to it. So I scored my own piece, in reverse. So it's cool.
Nice. Why don't we check out another track? Why don't we pick one from? Do you want to do one from Jazz Is?
Yes.
All right, pick a track. What?
Distant Thing.
Okay. All right. So at the request of Serj Tankian, who already scored with John Lennon "Watching the Wheels," awesome song. So now we'll check out from Serj's Jazz Is project, "Distant Things." Hey, this is Steve Baltin. You are listening to Speakeasy on Mohique Radio, and that was from Jazz Is, Distant Things, with today's guest, Serj Tankian. Artist, musician, painter, and about to be a one-man traveling exhibition thanks to, my brilliant idea, which
That's
George
right.
is like, screw you, dude.
Yeah. He's going to want a percentage, George, you know that.
No, dude, I just want to see it. Just give me some backstage
Yeah.
passes and I'll come and look at it.
You got that already. It's actually Jazz is Christ.
Jazz is Christ.
album.
Okay, okay.
No, it's all good. But that's the funny part. It's kind of like, hanging out with friends and going, what's your record called? What's your jazz record called? Jazz is Christ. And they're like, that's funny, So, yeah, no, Jazz is Christ is, now that we're talking about that, Distant Thing is probably one of my favorite songs on that record. And I had originally done a variation of it with the musical, Prometheus Bound, in Boston. And so I decided to sing on it and kind of make it different, and it's such a beautiful song. It reminds me of classic jazz songs in this case. And Stuart Copeland played on there, and all the other guys that play with me, Dikran Hamasyan on Jazz is Christ, and Tom Dupree and Valerie Tolstov, they've played on it, and it's The record itself, Jesus Christ, is basically a conglomeration of tracks, jazz tracks that I've been working on for years. Because I work on different types of music, irrespective of a project at hand or not. And so I gathered these 3 great jazz player friends and decided to complete the songs with them and also do a few of their songs. So that is what Jesus Christ is as a project. And it's mostly instrumental, but there's 3-4 songs that are with vocals. One funny one, which is the most rock-oriented one, is called Miso Soup. It's a whole song about miso soup. And it's very trippy, reminiscent of 70s progressive jazz rock kind of thing, and yeah, it's good stuff.
So is that something you've always been interested in? Because you also mentioned Zappa earlier on as like that form of conducting. So,
Yeah.
I mean, the progressive, experimental, I mean, obviously that stuff is evident in system, but is it
Yeah.
something, I think it's also something too that as people get older, you start to like go a little deeper into your roots and find
Yeah.
the stuff that really sort of stood out.
Definitely. I do like progressive music to a certain degree, because I can't really listen to hours of Mahavishnu Orchestra, you know, like I can't, you know, so to a certain degree, you know, and though I love Mahavishnu Orchestras, you know, but yeah, so I like a fine mix of progressive elements with classic elements, and that's kind of what System is, you know, because there's elements of rock, pop, like so many different elements, but still a progressive nature, an attitude, if you will. And the same with Jesus Christ, which is more of a jazz thing, but that kind of a vibe that it doesn't sit comfortably within the... We've learned that none of our records sit comfortably within the predetermined genres that we would like them to market them through, and everyone's like, oh, this is not a jazz record, then what is it? Okay, this is not a rock record, what is it? This is not really technically a symphony, then what is it? You know, it's like, these are our variations of all those themes and genres, and you know, that's what music is. That's what art is.
Well, it's funny because I mean I've had this conversation with a great deal of artists as well, especially in the last few years, and I mean it does seem like the genre thing matters so much less now. When, for example, you know, for dating us, you know, or dating myself to all of the listeners out there, that apparently I'm 1,000 years old, but I remember going to like Tower Records, and you would go through the bins, and if you were looking for a jazz record, you had to go to the jazz section. If you were
Right.
looking for a rock record, well, now you don't really have to do that anymore.
Plus,
so,
there's no bins.
that's
no Tower Records.
That's true. That's kind of a
Yeah.
sad thing. There is Amoeba still, but you know,
Yeah.
they probably would put Jazz is Christ in the front display section anyway.
Right.
So there you go. You know.
Hopefully, it would be a staff pick. I love the staff picks. They have some funky taste records.
But at the same time, so do you find that, and especially, I mean, you're in that nice position too now of coming from System where you have a built-in fan base.
Right.
So if you want to do a Jazz is Christ record, if you want to do an experimental record, if you want to do an orchestra, people are still looking for the name Serj Tankian. So
Right.
does it matter then, you know, if it doesn't fit comfortably into one genre?
No, I mean, I've never fit into one genre from System days till now. Like, so that's all good and preferable. And as far as an audience, built-in audience, I don't take that for granted in the least bit, because I know really well that everyone has their own taste. Everyone likes different things, and there's part of our audience that only like heavy music, and that's awesome, you know, because I love heavy music. There's a part of our audience that are a little more diverse than that also like, you know, maybe some pop or some, you know, but don't like classical, let's say, you know, and that's cool too, you know, and then there's a part of the audience that like everything and will try everything and listen to country and listen to pop and jazz and rock and classical and, you know, goth and punk and everything, right? So, and they will gravitate towards some of these records.
Well, it's funny, when you think back on the records, I mentioned the Roots, the records that started that for you. I mean, do you remember the first record you bought?
My first purchase was through Columbia House, so I got like a bunch of free records at first, and then I had to buy one a year every year, and I want to say I was like 8 or 9, I would say, and so I don't remember which one the first one was,
Right.
but the Bee Gees' Saturday Night Fever was in that 5. I think Rick James was in that 5. There was an ABBA record in that 5. God, maybe a Stevie Wonder record.
I'm feeling a theme come through this here, though. So, I mean, why have we never heard the Serj disco record then? I mean, if you had Bee Gees and ABBA and Rick James, I mean, you know,
Yeah,
a disco child. So, I mean, you know, will there be like a you know...
Daft Punk just put out a disco record, and people are like, wow, this is incredible. And I'm like, no, this is disco.
But what they did was they went out and got the right people to do it.
Yeah. No, definitely, and they're a great band and they do it well. I just mean that.
Yeah, I know exactly what you. It's funny because I remember.
We're both dinosaurs in that sense, where we remember the '70s and disco. So when we, but a young person hearing disco now is like, wow, that's incredible, and I'm like, wow, yeah, that's disco. It's like for them it's a new thing, and for us it's like, wow, cool. Yeah, I'd love to make a disco record. If I can get Barry Gibb to do it with me, especially, I love disco. I think it's a great form of dance music. Dance music's awesome. I want to do a dance record actually.
Okay.
Yeah, that's another one down the line. Total electro, crazy dance record. Why not?
Why not exactly? I mean, are there artists that... It's funny, because when I think of you doing a dance record, though, I admit, not to stereotype or generalize, but the artists... No, actually, it's not a bad thing at all, but the artists that come to mind are the more experimental ones, like Autek or... I fucking love Aphex Twin.
Yeah, Aphex Twin's awesome.
Yeah, so something more along that line... Yeah.
Maybe, I don't know. You know what would be cool? What pisses me off? What pisses me off about dance music is how genreized it is. So if you're doing house now, it's all house. The whole record's, if you're doing this, it's all this, Oh, we don't do DMB anymore because it's all house now. Like, everyone's doing house now, And tomorrow, dubstep is great. Everyone's doing dubstep, it's almost like too fashionable for my taste. So I want to do a dance record where every track is a different genre.
Nice.
Of dance music. So drum and bass, house, disco, and, go through the whole thing. And, why not?
So who would be some of the artists that you would want to work with in there? It's funny. I mean, you say like drum and bass, and it's like one that comes to mind just because I freaking love him is DJ Markey out of Brazil.
Oh, okay. I haven't heard him.
He's awesome. I used to
DJ Markey?
Yeah, out of Brazil. He's amazing, So, I mean, there's so many talented people in there to be able to work with, too. And it's funny because that is one thing about dance music is everything right now is so trendy, as you say. Yeah. Everybody's working with the same damn people.
Yeah. Moby's great. He's a friend of mine, so maybe I'd do something with him. He just popped into my head.
I love him.
He's awesome, yeah.
Oh.
I mean, he's done a punk record, he's done, so many different things.
Everything is Wrong is probably still in my top 10 favorite albums of all time. Like, not just genre. I mean, that's an incredible album.
It
from
is
March to Finish.
Yeah, totally. And, we're actually just doing a track with Benny Benassi, the DJ, and he approached us, and, it's not done or anything like that, but we're looking at maybe doing something with him, and just whatever makes sense.
Nice. Well, that also creates opportunities for people to come to you for collaboration, though, as well.
Yeah, definitely, yeah.
And so, I mean, again, it's one of those things, I'm sure you go to so many different people for a collaboration, you want to do stuff, but if people come to you, it gives these opportunities where it's like, yeah, dude, I mean, it's a chance to try something new and different, and it's like, I wouldn't necessarily picture Benny Biasi, but I mean, he's a cool dude.
Yeah.
No,
I didn't either, and when I first checked out the music, I was like, okay, cool, and but when I met with him and his brother, and they played me a bunch of tracks. There was one that I really gravitated toward that kind of spoke out to me, so it worked, But it may not in other cases with other artists or other DJs or whatever. And collaborations are fun, but usually we wait for people to approach us, just because we've got like a schedule and all that. We've got too many records and too many projects already. But once
and then assholes like me come up with new concepts, and now you're changing up the live show and everything, and yeah.
He's actually he created a new live experience for the paintings at live venues, and he encouraged me to do a dance record right now, which was like kind of at the back of my head and not really wanted to say, that I would do this, but I wouldn't mind doing it. Yeah.
All right.
Cool. What else am I gonna do next year, Steve?
2014, here we come.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know, because you wanted to take a break and everything, but well, it's funny because you started talking about the disco. George is rolling his eyes at the break, man. But no, you mentioned the disco records, and I'm like, well, dude, if that's the stuff that you grew up on, it does seem like a natural progression because it's the one style that you really haven't.
Yeah. Dance. I wouldn't mind doing a dance record. Yeah, but nothing cheesy. Not like all this crappy dance pop music that's out there right now.
Yeah, I mean, is there other stuff out there in the dance world though that you like and admire? And it's funny because I remember having this conversation. I was at EDC last year in Vegas, and Pasquale, who runs EDC, was a guest on the show. Actually, he's a really cool guy, and I love what they do there. Mm-hmm. And my favorite interview though at the whole festival was Richie Houghton, who's amazing. Yeah. And we were talking about the fact that for him, the way he views it is that if you have people come in and they're there for whatever the dance pop music of the moment is, and he wasn't knocking anybody. He was not knocking anybody. But what it does is it brings them in, and then he's like, my role is to be their left, to be on the left side so people can come now and find it and see where dance music started and find the different stuff. So it's like, it's awesome if people like Calvin Harris, no knocking on Calvin Harris, but he's obviously successful in the charts. David Guetta,
Yeah.
Swedish House Mafia, people come in based on that.
Yeah.
And then through that they go off and they discover Richie Hawtin and they discover Carl Craig and they discover the people who came first and everything.
Yeah, yeah.
So I'm curious if there are those artists though that you really look at and other artists that you kind of admire in that world. You mentioned Moby obviously specifically, and again, he's freaking awesome, but
yeah,
you know.
no, he is. There's a bunch, man. I mean, RJD2 had a record. I mean, I don't know if he's put out anything since then, but I remember that was a cool record. DJ Shadow, like more hip hop based stuff,
Yeah.
obviously, but also electro. There's so many. I mean, it depends on drum.
Do you ever get a chance to go out and check out the events just to see like what they? Because I mean, obviously, as just as a music fan,
Yeah,
it's so
yeah.
interesting to see what kids are responding to.
I mean, especially at the giant music festivals, Coachella style, all over Europe. Like there's the giant, electro tent or EDM tent or whatever, and besides the rock stages and all
Yeah.
that. So it's a great opportunity to go and check out some new music that you haven't heard. It's cool. It's cool. I'm looking forward to doing that this summer, actually, in Europe. Yeah.
So which festivals are you guys doing? Like, what are some of the big ones you're doing? And
We're doing Leeds and Reading. We're doing in Paris. We're doing the Rock and Seine. We're doing
Rock and Ring and Rock and Park.
We're doing Rock and Ring. No, they're called. They're not. We're not doing Rock and Ring, Rock and Park. We're doing two other festivals in Germany. George, you're fired. George will get you the full list in 3 seconds, so I won't have to answer that question. That's the.
Well, I'm curious. It's one of those things too. I mean, do you get a chance to look ahead, see who else is playing? I mean, it's funny too because for so many artists too, it's just a chance to like catch up with friends.
Yeah, it is a good chance to catch up with friends. A lot of bands will be touring at the same time throughout Europe because the two major festival seasons in Europe are either June or August. So you're either touring in June there or August, basically.
So who are some of the people you're looking forward to catching up with?
I haven't actually looked. I haven't even had time to actually look. It's a few months down the line, so I'm sure I'll get there to see what bands are playing this summer. But I haven't even looked.
So when you're doing that as well, will you be having opportunity then, like in the midst of that? I mean, will you be concentrating during that time solely on system stuff, or will you be able to take the other records, Jazz is Christ and Orca, on the road during independent times, or is that going to be a totally separate thing?
It'll be a separate thing. The system tour will be the system tour, and then I have like 2.5 weeks off. I'll stay in Europe and then start the Orca tour. There's a full Orca tour that we're starting in Kiev with the Kiev Solo National Orchestra. We're doing 6 shows with them through Ukraine and Russia, and also Helsinki, Finland. And then we go and play with an Italian orchestra to do 3 shows in Italy, in Florence, Padova, and Rome. And then we do 2 shows in Poland with a Polish orchestra, 2 shows in the Baltics with a Lithuanian orchestra.
Wow, okay.
And so it's like, it's a whole month of tour just for orchestras in Europe.
And will there be American orchestra dates in the fall, or is that right now not things scheduled?
We haven't scheduled anything right now. We would love to, more than, it's easier for us to play here than anywhere else, obviously. For some reason, the rental, like when promoters put together a show in the U.S., they won't give us as much rehearsal time with the orchestra and the rehearsal space. In Europe, we need 2 full days with an orchestra to be able to perform the material and a full sound check on the day of the show. Here, we're not getting that. So we would prefer to wait until we have the opportunities to do so. We tried once in Atlanta to do with just a sound check. And the material is so fresh and different from Wagner and Chopin that it's an older orchestra especially, it's hard for them to really play it correctly. So, whether it's Orca or Elected Dead Symphony that I perform with orchestra, they need 2 full days of rehearsal. And so we haven't been able to get the promoters to be able to give us that time in the U.S. When we do, we will play here.
And what about Jazz is Christ? Any opportunities to play? Because as you say, you work very specific. You work with specific. Let's try that again. You worked with specific musicians on the record. So will you have opportunity to play with them live, or is it right now just more of a studio project?
We actually were invited to play one of the most prestigious jazz festivals in Europe, the North Sea Jazz Festival, but the timing was so off. It was, I think, this month or next month, and because we're already going for 2 tours in Europe back to back, I couldn't just go play one show even if it was the most prestigious jazz festival. And the material's never been played live, so we need plenty of rehearsal time, as you would know, and plus everyone lives all over the planet, so we'd have to bring everyone to the same place and all that. So as of now, it'll be a studio record, but down the line, I think, maybe for a museum opening or some cool event. It would be cool to bring all the guys together and you know, do a real cool rendition of Jesus Christ live.
It's one of those things too, though, when you work on so many, and we'll wrap up in a minute because I know that you have another interview to do after this, and we'll make these last couple questions. But I also know that when you do so many different projects, you know, you kind of have to pick and choose where each thing will live, because when you're releasing 2 albums simultaneously, it's not like you can say, okay, well now I'm going to tour both. It's not like freaking Guns N' Roses doing Use Your Illusion 1 and 2,
Right.
where you can do both those albums live.
Yeah, exactly.
When you're doing a symphony record and a jazz record,
Yeah.
you know, so I would imagine as well you have to sort of pick and choose those. How do you determine what will translate and what will be like a sort of, I hate to use the term one-off project, but something that will be more as an independent thing, more of a solitary thing, versus something that you want to take out and have live and evolve?
It's actually simpler than it seems. You just put it out there to your agent and say, I want to tour with this project, I want to tour with this project, and see how much interest you get from promoters, how much investment. So, you know, with the orchestra thing, which is, you'd think the most expensive of the projects to tour with, because you have 52 people besides your own guys and stuff, it actually turned out to be very successful. And when we did it in 2010, so now they want us back, and so that's been cool. System obviously is successful. The FCC with the records that we've put out, the rock records, have been successful. So the jazz one, I don't know. You know, maybe we'll do it one day, but you know, it's you throw it out there and see what happens. You know, and although we got a prestigious jazz festival and a great offer to play, it was like difficult. Plus, you have to commit yourself, like you're saying. You know, I've got a system tour, an orca tour. I can't do a full Jesus Christ tour this summer. Like that would fucking kill me. You know, it's like, how many things can you commit to live is the question. And you know, I have more.
You were saying you did a Charlie Parker, Miles Davis remix years ago?
That's right, for the track Bird of Paradise on Savoy Records. Savoy was doing a bunch of remix, and so they were putting out a remix record called Bird Up, and so I did the remix, and you know, the jazz purists hated the whole record, all the remixes. They were like, how could you do this to Charlie Parker? We're talking about a guy that was on heroin, like just jizzing all over the place with his fucking, you know, horn, and like, that's what they did, those guys. There was no form. Jazz is about improvisation. It's about breaking all form and regulations, and you know, it is a very, very beautiful form. And so, you know, I'm a fan of those guys, Thelonious Monk, and you know, got so many, like, you know, I like the early big bands too, some of the big bands like Louis Armstrong's bands, and you know, I there's so many amazing jazz players over the years. I like classic jazz more than kind of like the light jazz of our newer generation kind of thing, the Kenny G world, I should say. Nothing against Kenny G, but
yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah,
I'm not really into that vibe. I like classic jazz. I like.
So you're not really listening to smooth
bebop.
jazz.
I'm not into smooth jazz. I'm into bebop. I'm into progressive jazz. You know, Coltrane's great, obviously, also on trumpet. Ornette Coleman, free jazz. You know, like there's so many amazing and jazz vocalists. I've always been more a fan of female jazz vocalists than male rock singers, as far as a musical influence, as far as a singer. You know, Ella Fitzgerald and the Billie Holiday, and you know, even though she's world, I would call jazz with God, what can I think of her name? From Cape Verde, Cesaria Evora.
Okay, yeah.
You know, even though she's world, she's really jazz.
Yeah.
You know, God, so many. Nina Simone is one of my favorite singers of all time, hands down. Like the guttural voice, the emotions that you can feel out of her. So I've always been a huge jazz fan, and you know, so this is kind of like my version. It's mixed up. There's electro stuff in there. There's a lot of live playing in there. There's you know, even strings and different. You know, it's a lot of instrumentation. Yeah.
Cool, dude. We have covered a lot of shit again.
Mm-hmm.
So what else?
As always.
Yeah. So what else do you want to add that I did not ask you about?
I think you covered it, bro.
Well, I mean, that's the thing, is we can sit here and talk forever, and there's like 17 records, you know, projects, so you haven't done that, you haven't really.
Making me think of something else. Yeah.
You know, but if there's nothing else you can think about it, let's pick a good closeout track, one
Okay.
that you know.
From which record?
Whatever you want. I mean, we could go with, you know, we didn't do anything from Orca, so you want to do something from Orca?
Yes. Let's do Act 1 from Orca. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Cool, man. As always.